Welcome along to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, home of the satirical saltire. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter, and with me today, we've got another candidate running for local council, and Blake Sharp, who's running for the Alba Party in Monteith and Sidlaw. Hi Blake, how you doing, mate?
Good, Peter. Good to speak to you.
Thank you very much. Right, well, tell us a wee bit about yourself, first of all, before we get into the chat.
I work in Aberdeen. I was formerly a commercial diver. I now work in the engineering sector, more so the inspection side, predominantly office-based. I've got my own department that I look after and a few guys offshore that work for me now. So essentially, I'm a pencil pusher nowadays, to be quite frank.
Oh, good, mate, good. And what made you decide that you were going to stand as a candidate for your local council?
Well, I've still got a house down in Monteith. I live slightly further away now, but still a house down there as well. I grew up there. My kids went to school there. My mum grew up there. My gran bought a house there 50, 60 years ago. So we've had 3 generations go through Monteith, and obviously I've seen the changes, for better or for worse. The issue with Monteith is it's one of these places people aspire to live, essentially. You know, right. I've made a wee bit of cash, I'll buy a nice house, I'll go to Monteith, I'll go to Broughty Ferry, these sort of places. The problem being they're building new housing estates, which is fine, but they're not building the infrastructure for all the bodies moving in. It's purely about essentially bums on seats to get houses up, to get people in, to make money. But we've got like 1 doctor's surgery, we've got a really old population there, we've got 2 schools, which are at capacity, they're totally rammed, and they're building another housing estate, they're not looking after the roads. When I was there was 3 banks in the building side, there's like 2 cash machines now.
Wow. So there's a boom in getting people in, but there's no a boom in creating the infrastructure to keep those people, and the people that already live there, excited about the place and proud of the place. I mean, it's a common theme that I've heard across all different areas of Scotland, and people have chosen to then try to run for council to try and make a betterment of it. And especially if you've grown up there, you'll know, like for your life, all of the things, as you say, good and bad, that have happened in that area. Do you see it as a good thing, the fact that they're doing it with bums and seats, as you said, first of all, without having the infrastructure to cater for that, or a bad thing?
I think if they've done it in stages, obviously when they got to a certain point when the schools are at capacity, etc., then you kind of have to think, right, pump the brakes, let's try and make a bigger infrastructure deal what we have here, and then kind of make it a bit more future-proof. There's nothing for kids either. Like, we've got a play park down the front, but when I was a kid, there was like Army Cadets, Boy Scouts, all these things. We had youth clubs at schools and try to keep people amused. So there's more bother as well with the kids because there's more of them and there's less to do.
Again, it's another common theme. What made you stand for the Alba Party then?
Well, my partner's standing for Alba as well, which I think you may have had her on your podcast at one point. Okay. Yes. So she got asked to stand for the party, and it was an area they're interested in, and obviously then they realised I grew up there and my family all grew up there. So they approached me as well, said, listen, would this be something you're interested in? You've got your views essentially aligned with your partners, and you've still got kids at that school there, so it's of an interest to yourself. And a lot of their views are aligned with mine, so it was a fairly simple decision, to be honest.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you've made the decision, because it seems to be that a lot of the people in government and some of the current councillors in certain areas don't have the same passion for the area in which they're being councillors, because they're essentially from different areas and they're coming in to just push pens and listen to orders for government. That doesn't suit the benefit of the locals and Scottish people in general. There's been news, obviously, the Alba Party are trying to make a wee bit of headway, especially with I can't see what the SNP, the attraction with the SNP is. They're making deals that are selling out Scotland, and it's in keeping with, as you say, just try to get flood areas with people without having the necessary means to keep those people happy, to give them a quality of life, because if you've not got the infrastructure there, if you've not got that, as you say, you end up with kids that have nothing to do other than group together and cause a wee bit of bother. So it's good to hear that you've got that passion about the area in which you grew up to try and ensure that it's booming in the right way. I'm going to play a wee short video clip now, because obviously the leader of the Alba Party is Alex Salmond, as we know, and he's been under attack over the past few days. Well, he's been under attack for years, but over the past few days again. And again, I think this is just another way to try and kibosh the progress that the party seem to be making towards the council elections. So I'm going to play a wee short clip here and get your thoughts on it afterwards.
Is it not important, though, to look at what happened here, what went wrong? Audit Scotland say that no normal financial safeguards were in place when this was awarded. This was a contract that's Ferguson's bid and were the most expensive of 6 tenders. Why do you think that former First Minister Alex Salmond made that decision and thought that was the right decision for the Scottish public purse?
Well, I think that you have.
First of all, Blake, if you don't mind, so if you just give me your thoughts on this that you've just watched.
In regards to the fact that the contract was overpriced and not the best for efficiency for financial.
Well, I mean, Alex Salmond wasn't the leader of the party when this contract was agreed. But Kirsten Oswald, the minister that you've seen on the right of the screen for in Westminster, didn't rebuff that blatant lie. And again, it shows that, for me, it shows that the SNP are working in cahoots with the unionist mainstream media. What's your opinion of that? Would you agree or disagree, or?
I'm not one to condemn people straight away. I'd like to think she didn't have the facts to hand and she just went along with it for the lack of knowledge, but I can't state what she did or didn't know. The fact that the TV presenter didn't do her homework either, which I assume she'd have a team of people behind her before she put this topic out.
Mm-hmm.
That shows a lack of diligence on her part. Being put on the spot, she may have known, she may not know. I don't know. I can't really say. I do agree a lot of the time narratives are painted that aren't strictly true and they suit people's agendas. I don't want to be a tinfoil hat wearer, but mainstream media do seem to put out what suits them at the time. A lot of the time things aren't challenged the way they should be. Fact checks in general are pretty weak, and corrections are pretty thin on the ground when these things get pulled up.
Aye, well, I mean, they did get pulled up, and rightly so. It's another smear against Alex Salmond, as far as I'm concerned, because he's a danger to their existence in Scotland. And I know local council doesn't give you the means to have an independent Scotland that's more about your area and what have you. But when they're attacking the party because of as the way I see it, is the progress that the party are making towards getting themselves out there and hopefully getting a lot of the seats at local council level to try and make it a betterment for Scotland, because Scotland's fallen to the wayside. I'm going to play the correction that they put out, which was put out the next night. So we'll do another wee screen share here. The correction that they put out the next night.
Glenn Campbell reporting there. Now, on last night's programme, we said that Alex Salmond, as First Minister, made the decision to award Ferguson Marine Engineering Limited a contract to build 2 new ferries. This was inaccurate. The contract was awarded in the autumn of 2015, by which time Mr Salmond had been replaced as First Minister by Nicola Sturgeon. We apologise for the error and are happy to correct the record.
So, as we were saying, and as you rightly pointed out, it appears that corrections are very thin in the ground. They don't do their fact checking beforehand. I mean, or ultimately, it was another attempt to smear the leader of the Alba Party. Do you think that there's ulterior motives at play?
My concern with these things are most headlines, if they're not checked, are usually it's the amount of damage they've done initially compared to what the damage control after the fact for the apology. because these narratives will be pushed through.
Right, Blake. So tell me about your interests outside of your work and outside of politics. What sort of things interest you? What sort of things do you do in your days off or your time away?
Yes, days off and time off, that's always fun. There doesn't seem much of that these days, to be honest. A lot of our time is focused on the kids, if I'm being honest. The kids train like 6 nights a week. They're forever training. So most of our evenings are taken up with that. As you know, weekends, try and get some quality time together with the kids and stuff. For me, my only real vice or such is motorbikes, which I'm a big fan of, and I go to the gym 5-6 days a week.
Right.
Everything else is as and when, to be fair.
Right.
I've got for years of rugby and gym, etc. Knees are not in the best of nick now, so I used to do a bit of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and stuff before, which seems to be knocked on the head now due to that. But that's how my kids got into it. So my kids do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and a bit of Muay Thai and Taekwondo and Judo and stuff. So they're always really busy. So it's kind of, my time's filled up with the kids, to be honest.
It's the same when I was the same a few years ago. It's not so bad now. My kids are up and two of them are making their own way in the world, you know. But it's good to hear that you've got that time away to enjoy yourself. You'd mentioned motorbikes. Do you have a motorbike?
A couple, yeah. I picked up one of the new Triumph Rocket 3s, the GTs, the 2.5 litre bike. So I picked that up a year and a half ago. I've got a BMW S1000 XR. We did have a CBR 600, which was Lisa's, but she recently had a bit, well, not recently, maybe a year and a half ago, had a bit of an accident. Somebody in a boy racer and a wee silver car came in the corner the wrong side.
All right.
So she had to try and manoeuvre away, hit a bit of gravel, wiped the bike out, fixed the bike, and I can't get her back on a bike now, to be quite frank.
Right.
The injuries were pretty minor in the grand scale of things, but I think it gave enough to give her a flight. So yeah, I've still got a few bikes.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one of the things. I used to be a driving examiner. It was one of the things that a lot of people, for whatever reason, I don't know if they just don't pay attention to bikes when you'd folk out in driving tests, and that was a lot of the common faults that people made. They're ready to go at a junction because they've no looked properly and looking for a car and no seen a car and thinking that it's good to go. So I used to play this game with my youngest when we were in the car, where we would spot different types of vehicles. So it was HGV, a specific type of HGV that was you used to see on motorways and that, travelling from down south all the time. I don't want to give them a name check because I don't. But the other thing we used to look out for were learner cars and motorbikes. So we used to have this wee game, and it got them an awareness looking out for bikes, not just in the car, but in general. So anytime we used to go walking between where we lived in the town to if we were going to do a bit of shopping or what have you, we would still play that game so that it gave them that awareness to look out for bikes, because bikes, there's a lot of accidents involving bikers, and it's because a lot of it is because people say that they don't see them. They don't know that they don't see them. It's just that they're no tuned to looking for motorbikes. So I've every sympathy for bikers. I love the way that there seems to be a biker community, and they come together. There was unfortunately a young lad had died, and he had a big liking for motorbikes, and they'd asked when it was his funeral if the bikers could attend, and it was obviously it was a sad occasion, but it was brightened up by the fact that you had the bikers there, and they done him proud, is the way that I'll look at it, the way that I'll word it. So do you have a club of, or not necessarily a club, do you have a group of friends that you would maybe, if you were taking the bikes out and go together as a wee group, or are you more of a solo?
I used to be involved with a club, etc., and would go out together, etc. But to be fair now, just on my schedule being so busy with work, and I just don't have the time, to be honest, to try and commit to anything. So if the occasion sort of presents itself, I'll just get up in the morning at 9 o'clock and disappear for the whole day and come back at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's hit or a miss. So I just don't have the time or the schedule that I can really commit to anything. So it's just when I can get out, I get out.
Aye, I think a lot of that, when I know that I'm saying that you're old here, but when we're younger, we'll do the royal way. I know that you're a fair bit younger than me, but when we were younger, we had more time to do the things that we enjoy. But then when the family comes along, it's, as you say, your schedule gets packed out because you're working hard, and your occasion you're pushing your pen frantically, and filling up your time that way so that you can keep whatever time you've got with your family financed well enough, because it's expensive to even, I would imagine, even your kids' martial arts and what have you. It's an expensive business. It's expensive to try and get all the kits and to take them to places and to do things. Do you find that your finances are getting stretched more and more? Obviously, Brexit has had a big impact and still to impact us fully. And then you've got the way that the world is with recessions and what have you. It's more taxing on the average working person. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think, especially now with fuel prices going up and everything's kind of gone up now. The electricity looks like it's going up. General power bills are going up. Yeah, I think people are stretched now. That's definitely an issue. The thing, I've been sort of lucky enough to have the finances to do all these things with my kids, to keep them busy all week. But that's one of the sort of big drive for me as well, for the area I'm standing in. There's nothing for kids to do, and we can't expect everyone to be in a position to pay for 4 jiu-jitsu classes, a taekwondo class, a Muay Thai, guitar lessons, gymnastics. You can't expect that. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, so I have a little bit extra money which I spend on them. But I've got a decent job and I've done all right, so I can't. A lot of people are struggling just now.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that, and I think that people should try and be aware of that, and try and, especially local councils, they should try and make facilities for people.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I don't remember having a massive outgoings for me doing things. I remember going to like army cadets. I remember doing karate. I remember doing Cub Scouts and Scouts and stuff, and going to youth clubs and stuff. But none of it was particularly expensive. A lot of these things were put on and financed in the background with other things. So if it was available when I was younger, then there's no reason why it shouldn't be available now.
I totally agree, mate. I totally agree. Right, so in an ideal world scenario then, you're successful in the council elections, you become councillor for Monteith and Sidlaw. In an ideal world, the finances were available to you. What sort of things would you introduce?
A big push for me at the moment is something not really spoke about much, is the education system, especially where I'm standing just now. To put things in perspective, the primary school that I went to, that my son still goes to, used to be ranked 50th in Scotland. Mm-hmm. It's now 859.
Right.
So
it's a big drop, isn't it? So what do you feel that the cause of that is?
There's a lot of factors at play. I'll have to give them the benefit of the doubt. The main factor is the fact there's an expanding population and a finite amount of space in that school. So they're stretched to capacity already. That was what I was trying to point out already. The infrastructure there's weak and everything's failing because of it. They need to put more money into building an infrastructure that will support that size of community, and the now expanding community. The same as the other school. The other school's sitting at, I think, number 100 now in Scotland. And it's not that far away, but it's a slightly different area, and all the new buildings, etc., are down, as you can tell, with the school that's dropped right down the rankings, because you can tell that's the telltale sign. Mm-hmm. Somebody knew actually phoned the council and asked them, why is this massive drop in rankings happened? And they blamed it on COVID. So apparently 3 miles down the road, COVID never hit that other school because it's sitting at 100, but the one that was sitting at 50 is now 859. Nothing to do with the fact that all the housing estates were built up round about it, and it's now completely at capacity or beyond capacity.
I mean, local people, and this seems to be the theme, local people know what the issues are, and yet you've got governments that are centralised that try and pass everything off under a pandemic, or if we go south of the border, it's under Brexit and the pandemic. I mean, the pandemic's been a great graveyard for a lot of the problems that Brexit has caused. But when local people know what the issues are, but they've got no way of communicating it to the higher levels, the issues are only going to get worse. Look, if you had to, look, in Blake's world here, right? So here you go.
It's a scary place.
Right, well, make it less scary. How would you make it less scary?
For that specific area, a lot of it comes down to, well, one, like we were talking about the ferries earlier on, there's so much money wasted and people aren't held accountable. For instance, the road that runs past my house is quite a major road, and they resurfaced it recently. Within about a week, the potholes were back.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it works for you. I don't know what your occupation is, but a job gets signed off, and there's a level of quality expected. The contract's in place. If I weld something to a deck, for instance, and it gets inspected, non-destructive testing, we check the weld, there's no cracks in it, it's completely fine. And then it goes offshore and it goes over the side. This has never happened, by the way, just to make you aware. But if it does, we do analysis after the fact to see what stresses and strains are put on it, and then you'd fall back on the NDT company, then you'd fall back on the welding company. But all the checks are done front end, and then all the checks are done back end, and it's signed off and approved. So there's a level of quality and a level of checking put into everything we do. So it seems to me that the taxpayers' money at the moment is getting used, abused, and there's no checks and balances for what they're spending on.
There's no accountability even after it. As you say, there is everybody that's employed will have some sort of code of conduct and some level of expectation on whatever the job is that they're doing and the quality of it. But there has to be repercussions for people that are constantly failing and constantly costing taxpayers more and more money. I mean, obviously, I know who your wife is. We had her on the podcast a while back. I've had her on a couple of times actually. But the full scenario with women's rights and the attacks on women and what's going through the Scottish Parliament with the GRA, that's costing the taxpayer. The taxpayer doesn't agree with the implementation of it, but again, it's costing the taxpayer for initially. It's costing the taxpayer to fund it. Then it's costing to cover court cases that don't need to be had if these checks and balances that you're talking about in every level of employment are done before they're implemented. I mean, that shows me that the government that we've got isn't working for the electorate.
Well, I think that's the basic sort of idea between Alba, because I appreciate that not everyone wants to vote Tory. I appreciate not everyone wants to vote Labour. Nobody wants to vote Green, or nobody really wants to vote Green as a rule, Liberal Democrats, etc. And I know there's not people aligning a lot of these parties in Scotland. I completely appreciate that. And it was a one horse race previously with the SNP. And because of that, they have pushed a narrative that suits themselves unchallenged. I think the fact they've paired up with the Greens, which was completely horrendous. We had Nicola Sturgeon pushing oil and gas was the saviour of Scotland for independence. Now it's the demon and everyone hates it, and let's not worry about the fact there's how many people employed with it. I'm in oil and gas, so I've maybe got a bit of a bias for that, but for what was once a strength, because she's now aligned with the Green Party, is now a weakness because it suits her narrative to push things through. For instance, your GRA, my understanding is pretty much half the party of the SNP were not fond of the GRA situation, but the Green Party pushed over the line because of allegiance with the Green Party.
I mean, politics is turning into a sham in Scotland, and you've got to wonder why when in 2014, obviously, with the independence referendum, then Nicola Sturgeon took over the leadership of the SNP, and it's like, I'm an independent supporter. I don't hide that for anybody. I'm Scottish, and I want Scotland to thrive as an independent nation. Nicola Sturgeon had all that, but chose to forfeit it, to keep introducing policies that the electorate don't want, to spend money that the electorate haven't really got, because as we've already said, everything's going up, and yet taxpayers are funding these failed policies, failed ventures. And you've got to, I certainly ask, why is the government no doing what the electorate are kind of screaming out for, and at the same time costing the electorate more misery, more money, and everything that goes against why they were elected in the first place? If that's my opinion on it. What's your thoughts on the overall situation in Scotland, Bay?
Well, it boils down to we've got old people that can't heat their house in the winter time, and then we've got hundreds of £1,000s going missing. We've got court cases which were looking like a sham from the start for alternative agendas. We've got people standing in Holyrood being very forgetful. I think 50 odd times, couldn't remember. The whole thing is a bit of a sham just now.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like a bit of it's not really a democracy as such. It's more a dictatorship at the moment.
Yeah.
These people are employed by the people to basically action the things that we want, or action the best outcomes for most of our situations, our roads, our family, they're there to action things to help us, or help the majority of people as best they can. And at the moment, all they seem to be doing is pushing their own agendas for circling more around a very small minority at the sort of downfall of the major majority.
Yeah.
Which for me, I'm based in facts, logic, maths, statistics. For me, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
It's a confusing time because, like, as you say, there are all of these facts, logic, historical statistics there that, if they're used in the right way, it should be to make the country a better place and to make the electorate a happier electorate. But at the minute, everything seems to be up in the air. It's a scary time, but it's good to know that we've got people like yourself that see these issues for what they are, and they're willing to put themselves out there to try and make a wee bit of a difference, and especially in your the area in which you're running for. You've got the knowledge of how it could be, or how it used to be, and how these places could be again with the right application and funding, and accountability is something that, as you mentioned as well, because at the minute there's all of these things happening and people are highlighting it. Well, how's it not getting better then if we're putting all these wonderful people in place? It's like a gravy train is how I see it. I don't know about you. I mean,
well, we had this conversation. From what I can gather, I'll have to check if it's 100% true. It's conversations with my partner, etc. But it looks like essentially half the SNP weren't fond of this GRA situation.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen any of them jump ship.
No.
I haven't seen any of them stand by their morals.
No.
I've seen every single one of them. I guarantee their paycheck arrives at the end of the month and they take it quite happily and just shut their face and move on with their life. So they were originally put in these positions to make a difference. And the reason they were voted in the first place is because people had faith that they would stand on their morals and do the right thing, and represent the people that maybe didn't have as big a voice. Okay, we don't have a big voice. We're going to give you this position to make sure that you can help us and make the right decisions, act on morals, act on logic, do the best thing for us. And now we're at a point where it looks like a vast majority have no interest in the money and are too worried to fall off that podium.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you'd mentioned you've got kids. I mean, what's your thoughts on the sex survey that was put out to some of the schools?
I'm led to believe a lot of the parents asked to see the questionnaires and they were refused, from what I can gather. So that, I think, speaks volumes. If you're not willing to give the parents the questionnaire so they can see what's appropriate for their children, then if you have to hide the questions, that in itself concerns me a lot. If you can't have complete transparency about something you're asking my children and let me see it, then I'm not interested in taking part.
Yeah, and the way that they're doing it is slightly underhand as well. That you have to withdraw your consent beforehand.
You have to withdraw it 3 times.
You've had to withdraw it 3 times.
3 times, like we've said, look, we would like to see the questions. No, okay, then we'll withdraw our consent, and then we'll get another email. Just to remind you, we need consent for this. We've already told you we're not doing that unless you show us the questions. So we have to withdraw it 3 times now. We keep getting emails. And the last time I was like, listen, I'm kind of sick of this now. This is the 3rd occasion. I'm going to give them the benefit out and assume it's maybe an automated email, or they have an email group and they just click it. So it's maybe just an error at their point. But after the 3rd time, I was like, come on now.
It shows like nobody's paying attention. That they're driven to the agenda that they want to push, and parents are angry about it. I mean, I'm certainly angry about it. I've got a 12-year-old who's just about to go to high school. And if it wasn't for, again, I need to thank women for this, because it was women that brought this to my attention. I've probably no seen a letter, because I know what my boy's like. He comes home and the school bag goes away and it's like, have you done your homework? Have you done this? Have you done that? Right? Aye, okay, give me that school bag down to check it. And before you know it, you're checking something there and you've got a wee slip there that, oh, this needs to be done. What this? How did I know about this? Oh, I forgot to get it. And like, kids are too busy, like, wanting to be getting on with their lives. when they're out of school, school's something that I know. Was something for me that, oh dear, I have to go to this. Right, okay, right, in we go. I'll go into school. But it was carefree. It was like I was going into school to chat with my mates. Obviously, to do a wee bit of schoolwork and that, but to chat with my mates about what we were going to be doing after school and everything else. I didn't really care about. Right, I've got a letter here that I need to get my parents. And if people are honest, I mean, I noticed that with my youngest. It's like a case of you need to like, right. Hold on, what's happened at school? Tell me something that's happened at school. Well, we've done this or we've done that. But it's worrying the fact that, as you said, you've had to withdraw your consent 3 times. People aren't doing their jobs, because if they would have been doing their jobs, the first time that you would have done withdrew your consent should have been enough. If you're, when you're successful in your bid for council, if you get something that lands on your desk that says that this sex survey's to go ahead in the schools in your area, what will your approach to it be?
And my approach to most things is to challenge it with logic. As simple as that. I don't. I'm not easily annoyed. I don't get shouty. I don't get angry. I find for me, if I get to the point I'm angry or annoyed, I generally make mistakes. That's what I've found out through my years of doing what I do. Staying calm and dealing with things as logically as possible and methodically as possible works best for me. So if it landed on my desk and it was an issue, I would address it in a logical manner. I'd address the council. I'd ask them for some information. I'd ask them how they got to this point. I'd ask who they surveyed to say it was acceptable, who approved the questions. You know, are the parents getting complete visibility? Have we asked the parents if they would like complete visibility? We can't make assumptions that because somebody somewhere in the council decided these questions are right and probably doesn't have kids, means that it's a great idea. At the end of the day, we put a level of trust in schools and education system to teach our kids appropriately. So I think if you get questioned by a parent and it's a genuine concern, you should give complete visibility. You should say, okay, this is what we've got, this is what we're asking them, this is why we're asking them, this is the reason for the questions, and give the parents a bit of reassurance. Don't just go, this is what's happening. Say yes or no.
I mean, that sounds, again, I love the fact that you explain it so well, and it's a case of a wee bit of logic, a wee bit of insight, a wee bit of questioning what's going on. That seems to be missing, though. That seems to be missing with the current government. It seems to be gung-ho, we're doing this, and everybody's suffering along the way.
I think, in general, you know the situational partner. Question anything that goes against the common narrative or goes against the narrative everyone's scared to speak against, puts you on the back foot straight away. And a lot of people, like the area that I'm standing for, like I said, a lot of people have maybe moved there. They've done a little bit better. They bought a house there. They don't want to stick their head above the parapet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like a middle class sort of place. So like, oh, we've landed. We've got a decent gaff now. You know, we're doing all right now. We just want to blend in and be one of the boys. But that's not how that works, because you're then doing that to the detriment of your children. I grew up there. I don't really care if there's a question to be asked. I'm more than happy to ask it.
Aye. I mean, sorry, on you go, Blake.
And I think a lot of the people there know me. Obviously, I grew up there, so they know fine well if they approach me with something, and it's a genuine concern. I have no issue with asking the question. I have no issue of going into the office of whoever I have to speak to and going, excuse me, like, I've had this issue, can you please explain this to me? Because what's the worst that happens? They explain it to me, it makes sense. I go back to the person, tell them, okay, this is why it's happened. And I change my view. But at least I address it. I can then give them an answer and maybe put their mind at ease. But people seem to be scared to ask the question.
I agree with that. People are afraid to put their head above the parapet, because the minute that you do, and I've seen certainly only on too many occasions, you get accused of being all sorts of transphobes, bigots, or pick the slur that you want to have for trying to protect what you believe, or to try and even understand what these people are pushing it. And it's a case of name calling, shut down the debate, and nobody gets anywhere.
But the whole point of debate is, if you've got a point of view and I've got a point of view, your point of view might come from a lived experience you've had that I've not, or an angle that I've not had. So I might not agree with what you're saying, but when you put your story across of why you got that point, then I can maybe take something from that. I can maybe change a small part of my view to align with yourself, or maybe I can tell you something's happened to me and then why I feel the way I do. And then you're like, okay, well, that does make a bit of sense. I can understand where he's coming from. I might not change my opinion completely, and you might not change yours, but the whole point of debate is to put different angles across and see where you meet in the middle, and maybe have a different view of some of the things you've brought to the table.
Aye, I mean, again, it sounds too logical, mate. It's one of these things. It's like let's apply a wee bit of logic to the situation. Oh, no, you can't apply logic. You need to apply ideology. Is how
Name
I'm seeing it.
calling. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I don't think there's anything achieved. If someone starts calling you names, you've won the argument already.
Mhm.
If your retort is you're a whatever phobe or a whateverist, then you have no argument to what I've asked you the question about. You've had to resort to playground tactics to call me names, and that at that point doesn't change my mind anything, and it doesn't put you in a better light. It just makes you look angry and aggressive, and at that point we've not got anywhere.
Aye.
So it defeats the purpose of debate. You're not changing my mind. I've got then a very negative opinion of you, maybe negative opinion of everyone with that sort of mindset because of you. So you're actually doing the detriment to what you try to put across.
Yeah, it's bring back logic, bring back morals, bring back ethics, man. That's all we need. That's all we need, and a wee bit of common sense applied along the way. Right. Well, here you go. This is your chance to put your vote for me out there. So, over to you, Blake. Tell people in your area why they should vote for you, what you're going to be doing for them. When you go.
Well, like I've said to you, I know the area well. I grew up there. My mother grew up there. My grandparents have lived there a very long time. Got kids that went to local school. And people that do know me do know that I'm not backwards or coming forwards and concerned about something. If someone spoke to me and they were concerned about something, whether I totally agree with it or not, I would ask the question. I've never been one to have my own. I'm not a very emotional person. I don't tie emotions to things. If you've got a concern, it's my job to at least iron out your concern and get you some sort of answer. That's what I'll do. That's not an issue that way at all. The local education system I'm concerned about for a valid reason. I've had kids who went to that school. I went to that school. The infrastructure of the area, I've got a concern. I've got my grand still lives there. My kids still go to school there. I've got friends that are kids still there. There's nothing for them to do. The place is getting run down. There's very little shops in comparison to the people that are there. The roads aren't getting looked after. I look on the local forums and there's like issues like not enough bins, and I can understand they want the place to be tidy. They want the place to be looked after. These are all which will seem minor issues to most people. But if it's enough for a forum to kick off about it, then obviously it's bothering enough people to be asking the question.
Aye. Look, well, we're pretty much out of time for the day, right? But here, give Blake Sharp your vote if you're in Monteith and Fiddler. Vote 1, Alba in position number 1. And logic, common sense, a wee bit of, a wee bit of morals and ethics, and a wee bit of consideration for other people rather than shouting them down seems to be the order of the day. And it sounds as though Blake's going to bring that, something that may have been missing. So, for Blake Sharp, for Cinnamon Bridges at Tweed Street, Scotland occupied, it's satirical satire. It's goodbye for now. Enjoy your weekend, everybody.
Thank you, Peter.